The envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands as I stared at the official letterhead. Notice of power of attorney authorization, property transfer. The blood drained from my face as I read the signature at the bottom. My signature, written in handwriting that looked like mine but felt like ice against my spine. I'd never signed this document. I'd never even seen it before. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Don't come home today. We need space to think." The coffee shop around me suddenly felt too loud, too bright. I reread the document 3 times, my vision blurring at the edges. Someone had forged my name to transfer control of my house. The house I'd spent 2 years renovating, the house where I'd planned to build my future. My name is David. I'm 34 and a property developer. This is the story of how I learned that family doesn't always mean loyalty. The forged signature was perfect. Too perfect. It had all my quirks. The way I looped the D, the slight slant to my V, even the small flourish at the end of my last name. Someone had practiced this. Someone who'd watched me sign documents countless times. Someone who knew exactly how my handwriting looked under pressure. My sister Hannah's face flashed through my memory. All those family dinners where I'd signed checks to bail her out of debt. All those times she'd sat right next to me as I handled paperwork. She'd even joked once about how precise my signature was, how it never varied. The letter was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of family dinners where they'd smiled at my face, asked about my day, acted like nothing had changed. My mother, Emma, had even complimented the new paint job I'd just finished on the front porch. I called my property attorney immediately. "Marcus, I need you to check something for me. Has anyone filed any documents regarding my property on Maple Street?" The pause on the other end told me everything. "David, we need to meet now." An hour later, I sat in Marcus's office staring at a stack of documents that made my stomach turn. Power of attorney forms, property transfer initiations, even preliminary sale agreements, all bearing my forged signature. "The property is scheduled to be sold next week," Marcus said quietly. "The buyers are offering cash, above market value, very convenient for a quick sale." "Who are the buyers?" "A development company called Sunrise Holdings. Ever heard of them?" I hadn't. But something about the name felt familiar, like a word on the tip of my tongue. I asked Marcus to delay everything while I investigated. That night, I drove past my house. The lights were on, warm and inviting. Through the kitchen window, I could see my mother and sister sitting at the table, papers spread between them. They were laughing about something. Hannah raised a glass of wine in what looked like a toast. My phone rang. It was Hannah. "Hey, brother, where have you been hiding? Mom made your favorite dinner. You should come over." The casual tone in her voice, the way she acted like nothing had changed. It was like being stabbed with a smile. "I'll be there tomorrow," I said. "We need to talk about some paperwork." "Paperwork?" She laughed. "You sound so serious. Everything's fine, David. We're family." I hung up and stared at my house one more time. The house I'd bought after my divorce, the place where I'd rebuilt my life from scratch. The place where I'd hosted every holiday dinner, every family celebration, every crisis intervention when Hannah needed money. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator, not to spy on strangers, but to investigate my own family. Within 48 hours, I had answers that made me physically sick. The investigator delivered his report in person, with documented evidence of every forged signature and fraudulent transaction. Hannah owed $180,000 to private lenders, not the $30,000 she'd told us about. She'd been borrowing against the promise of my property for months, using forged documents as collateral. My mother wasn't just enabling her. She was actively participating, serving as a witness to the fraudulent signatures. The Sunrise Holdings Company was registered to Hannah's boyfriend, a man I'd met exactly once at a family barbecue. They'd planned to buy my house at a discount, immediately flip it for market value, and split the profits. But here's what they didn't know about me. I'd been in property development for 12 years. I understood every loophole, every legal protection, every way to secure assets against fraudulent claims. After a week of investigation and legal preparation, 3 days before their scheduled sale, I made my move. I transferred the actual property deed to a holding company I'd established years ago for tax purposes. The forged documents they'd been using referenced an old property registration, one that was technically valid but legally worthless after my recent renovations had changed the property's official designation. Then I did something that felt both heartbreaking and necessary. I called my family. I'd been recording our family conversations since discovering the first forged document, hoping I was wrong about their involvement. "I'm coming home," I told my mother. "We need to celebrate Hannah's good news." When I arrived at the house that evening, Hannah's new BMW was parked in my driveway like a victory flag. They'd clearly spent some of the advance money they'd received from the fraudulent sale. "David!" my mother called out, her voice bright with fake cheer. "Perfect timing, we have news." Hannah practically bounced as she spoke. "The house sold. Can you believe it? We got such a great price and everything happened so quickly." I nodded slowly, setting down my briefcase. "That's amazing. Tell me about the buyers." "Oh, they're lovely people," my mother said, avoiding my eyes. "A development company. They're going to fix up the neighborhood." "Sunrise Holdings?" I asked casually. Hannah's smile flickered for just a moment. "You know them?" "I know a lot of things." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder. "For instance, I know that the property you sold doesn't actually exist anymore." The room went quiet except for the sound of my mother's wine glass touching the counter a little too hard. "What do you mean?" Hannah asked, but her voice had lost its confident edge. I handed her the documents. "I mean that when I renovated this house, the property registration changed. The old registration you forged documents for? That's just an empty lot designation now. The actual house exists under a completely different legal entity." Hannah's face went white as she read. This says the property transfer was invalid." "Exactly." I sat down at the kitchen table where we'd shared so many family meals. "The sale you completed was for a property that legally doesn't exist. The money you received was for fraudulent documentation, and the signature you forged is documented evidence of federal fraud." My mother's hand went to her throat. "David, we can explain." "Can you?" I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Hannah's voice filled the kitchen. "He'll never figure it out. David's too trusting. By the time he realizes what happened, we'll have the money and he'll have nothing." The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "You recorded us?" Hannah whispered. "I recorded criminals discussing their crimes against someone they claim to love." I stood up, looking around the kitchen one last time. "Someone who'd bailed you out of debt 6 times, someone who'd given you a place to stay when you were evicted, someone who'd co-signed loans when no one else would trust you." My mother started crying. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. Hannah was desperate, and we thought you'd understand eventually." "Understand?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You thought I'd understand having my property stolen through forgery? You thought I'd be okay with being betrayed by the 2 people I trusted most?" Hannah finally found her voice. "We're family, David. You can't just—" "Family doesn't forge signatures, Hannah. Family doesn't steal houses. Family doesn't laugh about destroying someone they love." I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. "The FBI will be in touch about the federal fraud charges. The state police will handle the forgery charges. And the IRS will be very interested in your unreported income from the fraudulent sale." "You're sending your own family to prison?" my mother asked, her voice breaking. I paused at the door. "No, Mom. You sent yourselves to prison. I just made sure there would be evidence when you got there." As I drove away, I didn't look back at the house. I already knew I'd never see it as home again, even though legally it was still mine. Some violations cut too deep for property deeds to heal. 6 months later, Hannah was sentenced to 3 years for fraud and forgery. My mother received 18 months of probation and lost her job when her employer learned about her involvement in the scheme. The boyfriend who'd registered the fake company fled the state with what remained of the fraudulent sale proceeds, though authorities eventually tracked him down for questioning. My mother and I haven't spoken since her sentencing hearing. She wrote me several letters during her probation period, but I never opened them. Some relationships can't survive certain kinds of betrayal, no matter how much history you share. I kept the house for another year, then sold it. Legally this time, with my real signature on real documents. I used the money to start a nonprofit that helps fraud victims navigate the legal system. Sometimes people ask me if I regret turning in my family. The answer is complicated, but it boils down to this. I regret that they gave me no choice. Love shouldn't require you to become a victim of the people you care about most. If you've ever had that sick feeling in your stomach when someone you trust does something that makes you question everything, listen to that feeling. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt with apologies when the foundation was destroyed by intentional betrayal. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't about property law or fraud protection. It was that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones most willing to destroy you, because they believe that love means you'll let them. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.